Hi, everybody. My name is Scott Rutter. I'm the founder and president of the New Jersey Cannabis Business Association. And today we have a special lunch and learn. It's actually kind of late for lunch, but this is our normal lunch and learn channel. We have a very special discussion to do today because it's not our normal thing. And it's certainly, we're going to talk about medical home grow and the importance of that. And it's not something you would typically think that a business organization would get behind. And not only am I leading a business organization, I'm also a dispensary operator, Township Green in Riverside, New Jersey. And I just want to share one very important fact. Patients need their medicine, and the industry will not be hurt if we pass this legislation that Senator Gopal has sponsored. So, Senator, if you'd like to kick it off with a conversation about your legislation and why you think it's important, that'd be terrific.
Sure, Scott. Thanks for having me on, and thanks to all the stakeholders who are working hard on this. I've had this bill now for a few sessions, and it's had trouble getting traction. Every other state that's passed legalized cannabis has a home grow provision. New Jersey's the only one that doesn't. This bill originated for me about 5 years ago when I had a constituent in Eatontown that was having transportation challenges and having trouble accessing cannabis at an affordable price. Obviously, anyone that's growing 6 or 8 or even 10 plants has no impact on the market as a whole. And I think that if we're truly legalizing cannabis, to do it for the purposes of social justice and criminal justice reasons, not for the reason of allowing companies to come out of state to make money off New Jersey, there needs to be a home grow provision. So I'm going to continue to push for that, push my legislative colleagues to sign on and support the bill. I did talk to the chairman of the Health Committee, Senator Vitale, a couple of minutes ago. He has requested the bill to be posted multiple times. Unfortunately, leadership has not approved that. We're going to continue to collectively push. I know Senator Singleton down in Burlington has had a bill just on the medical side.
Yep.
The more we can get folks to talk about this is important. And it's incredible to see so many on the for-profit side part of this because they know how important this is as well.
Yeah, well, you have two license holders here. You have Kristen, who runs a lab. Kristen, why don't you give a little bit about your background? I'm going to save Andrea for last.
Thank you. So my name is Kristen Godey. I'm the founder of Trichome Analytical. We are an ISO 17025 accredited DEA registered cannabis testing facility in New Jersey. My background's in industrial hygiene and environmental third-party testing. So I transitioned my background into cannabis to do third-party testing for the cannabis industry. We've been operating for over 4 years now, started on the hemp compliance, pre-harvest USDA compliance side. And then we're the first cannabis lab in New Jersey to be testing under the medical program. And then the first lab also to be licensed for the state for adult use as well. And the home grow issue has really become something that's just inexcusable, I believe, in New Jersey. And as someone that, wants to participate in this industry and build this industry in the way that I can support it, I think, allowing medical home cultivation is a necessity at this point. We are the only state without any form of medical home cultivation that has adult use sales. We have over 2 years of adult use sales, over $2 billion in revenue for the state for adult use sales, while the patients are being left behind. So I think this is a critical issue that the state really needs to start paying attention to. And for them to do that, I think the industry really needs to show support and get behind it. We all know that it's not affecting dispensaries, it's not affecting cultivators or manufacturers to allow patients to grow a few plants. So at this point, just gaining awareness and support. There are people working in the industry that own businesses, even in the industry, that are unaware that medical home cultivation is still prohibited in our state. So we need to make sure everyone is on the same page and in support of this and is actively pushing the state for this.
100%. And I want to share a quick story, and then I want to turn it over to Andrea. Back in 2009, I was in the legislature. I voted on medical marijuana. I actually abstained on it. That's a whole long story. But in 2013, and none of us like to abstain, right, Vin? But in 2013 was really transformational moment where I met with a mother of a daughter who had Dravet syndrome. And in 2013, we were adding additional medical conditions, and we were adding children to the mix, right? So, and it was the Dravet syndrome that was so impactful because back then we didn't know as much as we know today on the medical value and a cross section of different things. We thought about glaucoma or cancer recovery or things like that. It was the Dravet syndrome. It's 100 and 200 seizures per day. And when the child had cannabis oil, it went from 200 seizures per day to 2 or 3 a month. And it was such a transformational moment for me where I'm thinking as a politician, like, who am I to be standing between a mother, a daughter, and a doctor in common sense? The concern was back in the day was that, oh, there's going to be this proliferation. We're going to flood the black market with legal weed if we allow home grow. And it's just certainly not going to be the case. And Andrea tells a great story. And Andrea, if you could go off mute for a quick second, I do really appreciate your background and your story and your bravery in coming forward. So I'm going to turn it over to you to give it a little bit about yourself.
Well, hi, my name is Andrea Rabel. I'm a medical patient in New Jersey, and I have epilepsy and a form of permanent and progressive brain damage. So I started having seizures back in high school, and I went through the ringer with pharmaceuticals. We tried just about everything we could, and it ended up stacking pharmaceuticals on top of pharmaceuticals to deal with the side effects, and really, really kind of ruined my quality of life. The pharmaceuticals I was on had my hair falling out, had me throwing up every day for over a year. I was losing weight. I was underweight. I turned to cannabis just to keep food in my stomach because that's a tale as old as time. We all know, if you know one thing about weed, it can give you the munchies. And it turned out it could do a lot more. The doctors had told me there was nothing you could do to stop a seizure that's about to happen, or if you're gonna have seizure activity where you're not having full-blown seizures, but stay away from stairs, don't drive, be cautious, you're high risk, it's going to feel worse than a migraine and it's not going to go away. So one night I was experiencing that and I was just trying to smoke to keep food in my stomach, and it cleared everything up. It did what they told me was impossible. And I spent about 2 years weaning off of a number of the pharmaceuticals and learning more about cannabis before it got to the point where they diagnosed the brain damage and had decided they were going to keep me on the pharmaceuticals that were damaging me the most at that point and wait for insurance to cover brain surgery. The options being either a lobotomy or a type of surgery where they essentially remove a piece of the skull and put in a pacemaker-like device that jumps current over the dead area. And the area the damage is in for me is memory, emotional regulation, things like that. So it's high risk too. So if you were to lose those things, you lose who you are.
Right.
But at the same time, being unmedicated has risks because every seizure can be fatal for any person with epilepsy. There's a condition called SUDEP, sudden unexplained death in epilepsy, and the only protection is prevention. And I found that different strains of cannabis can do wonders in preventing seizures for me, but certain strains can actually trigger them. So it's been a bit of a complicated process, or different products can trigger them, but some are really wonderful.
And the strains that, so again, let's go back to like the dispensary concern that some people still might have that I think is ridiculous as a dispensary operator. The strains that you need for your medical condition, is that readily available?
Not at all. Not in New Jersey, at least. And unfortunately, a lot of the ones that I've found beneficial aren't commonly on the market at all.
Right.
Because they're either long flowering times or low yields. So I'm sure people in the industry can attest to, you guys want to keep your harvests perpetual and pretty short. No one ever wants to grow 120-day haze.
Sure.
Or if it's a low yield, it'd be unreasonable to ask the dispensaries and cultivators here to cater to individual patients.
Or why would you, or if I'm the only one in the state doing it, why would you want to drive 2.5 hours to get there? And I think that's really what it comes down to. It's easy.
Not physically possible.
Exactly. And it's easy access to your medicine when it's growing in your closet, your basement, your garage, whatever. So, Senator, what's the feedback been amongst your colleagues? I mean, I know we talk about the leadership, that's, they have their concerns, but generally speaking, your colleagues on this subject.
Fortunately, it's not coming up a lot. It's usually just a small handful of us that continue to raise the issue. I just think it's not it's not it's not it's not on top of minds, and we get it. New Jersey's got a lot of issues going on, a lot of challenges, but I think for many of us who advocated for a long time for the legalization of cannabis, it was done for the purposes of social justice, criminal justice. It wasn't done for the purposes of profit. And so a home grow provision is pretty critical in that process. So we're going to continue to reach out to folks. I've encouraged anybody who cares about this issue to reach out to your senator and assembly people. People, Scott, you remember from your days, if someone lives in your district, you're more likely to respond.
Right.
We get a couple thousand emails a week, and the ones we look to respond to are the ones that live in my 19 towns, because that's how much time is in a week. So I think for anyone that cares about this issue, you gotta request a meeting. I've never had a constituent, unless they're like, totally very hostile for the sake of fighting, that I have not met with that lives in my district. So I think most legislators will do that. Especially, we have some, it's not a Democratic or Republican issue, but this is an issue that I think should play. I'm in a very, conservative district. I'm the only Democrat senator at the Shore. So it doesn't play a lot. I was moved by the constituent that started off in Eatontown, but this is an issue that should play to the broad electorate, whether it's in Montclair or Jersey City or Hoboken. And I'm not sure Princeton. I'm not sure how many of those legislators have gotten on this yet. Maybe some have, but I know I hear from folks in those communities and some of the urban cities around the state. So I'm hopeful that they can meet with their legislators and they can start lobbying them to get on this, because that's what's most important, is trying to get people to reach out to their state legislators.
Absolutely.
Becomes much harder for leadership to say no when 20 people are asking versus one or two.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's the voice, it's the common sense voice. And you said it earlier. I mean, we didn't legalize weed just for out-of-state operators to come in and make tons of money, right? We did it because of all the right reasons. And sure, yeah, we're going to make some money on this. There's going to be businesses, and we're going to be providing taxes to local municipalities, and we're going to create jobs. All those are wonderful things too. But a young man that I met, again, sort of transformational moments where you look at, I'm a business person. I run a trade association that's for oriented around businesses. And then I meet this guy, a single dad, a number of years ago. His daughter has Dravet syndrome, which is a very severe, seizure disorder. He's an X-ray technician, not a lot of money. And he risked, his 7 to 10 years of his life, of imprisonment, so he can get the cannabis oil, make the special oil for his baby girl, because it wasn't readily available. And that's what you do. It's what you're going to do as a father. And Andrea, don't get behind the wheel of a car unless you have to, right? I mean, it's like common sense. So why would you have to go through all these trials and tribulations? So what is it that, without breaking any trusts or laws here, like, what do you do? How are you doing? How can we help you? So the senator told us, how we can reach out to the legislators. What more would you like to see from organizations like ours and others, NJUMR? We got Ken Walski here from the Coalition for Medical Marijuana in New Jersey. What do you see? What do you would like to see?
Well, everyone should be reaching out to their local legislators. That'd be the biggest thing if we can push district by district. We have to be aware, because there are a lot of laws that could set us back or that are potentially dangerous to patients, and a lot of patients don't have a voice. So the other option is for businesses is to increase patient accessibility, whether that's means of communication or using your platform and your voice to actually speak up for our needs, whether that's with the CRC or, again, showing up to testify in the legislature when these bills do come up, contacting the legislatures as your business, not just as your constituent, because you have financial interests in those towns. We need a lot more transparency in the industry, things like COAs posted by cultivators and manufacturers. That way we can see ahead of time, instead of going to every dispensary, requesting everything to be printed out, trying to search through all the solvents ourselves.
That's a great idea.
Have the solvents labeled on packaging would be great, because there are products like RSO, which are life-changing for patients like me, but are inaccessible, inaffordable, and often mislabeled in this state. And they're compliant products because all concentrates are regulated under the same umbrella. So as long as they're below the levels of solvents, it doesn't matter which solvents. Person like me has sensitivities to butane residuals. RSO is not traditionally made with butane, but certain people are using it like it's just a random name or a flavor. These differences matter to patients, and if we're not going to have the platforms for education, we at least need the transparency.
Right on, Andrea. Right on. And Kristen, you see this a lot in your labs. I mean, what are you seeing with what's being, you know, concocted that's out there, and how what recommendations would you like to see as well?
Yeah, so I mean, there's definitely a difference in obviously the active compounds from strain to strain, the terpenes, the cannabinoids, minor cannabinoids. Right now, the industry is geared towards adult use, which is by nature the fact that you're going to have more sales based off of THC content. So the industry gears towards that. The medical operators were, you know, allowed to sell for adult use. There are no additional new medical licenses being issued. The industry is catering towards high THC adult use customers. They're not catering towards patients. So we're not seeing that like diverse cannabinoid terpene profile that is not just pushing out THC amounts. I mean, I think there might only be like one cultivar that has any measurable amounts of CBD. So we don't even see, you know, a lot of like 1-to-1s or even CBD dominant with low THC levels. You know, outside of obviously the hemp program, but the hemp program has other restrictions, and that's mostly, you know, outdoor cultivation use for extraction and things like that. I think that more diversity is required for certain medical needs, which are based off of the compounds that we see and we test every day. And I see firsthand that that's not happening in New Jersey in the cannabis industry here. And that, like I said, a lot to do like with what was said earlier about the hazes. They take too long to grow. So they're not commercially viable. So, and a lot of those minor cannabinoids come up in higher amounts later on into the growth cycle. So when you have those short 55-day harvest cycles, you're not seeing a lot of those minor compounds, which are medically beneficial. So I really think the only way to resolve this issue for patients is allowing medical home cultivation.
May I make another point with that too? The custom crosses. When you're talking about certain cultivars not being on the market, as a patient, sometimes you find benefits in two very different strains, and the ability to cross them for yourself so you can consume less medicine and still ingest the diversity that you need
Right on.
is very beneficial. And consistency. Homegrow allows you to have consistency, whereas most of the time in the market, even if they produce the same strain over and over, they're growing it from seed and then cutting it down, and the next batch they'll run another round of seed. Every seed is going to be as different as you are from your siblings. There's a difference between cloning a plant and maintaining those genetics versus having different phenotypes of the same plant. So at home, being able to pheno hunt, if we were to have canopy size instead of a plant regulation, would help us tailor our medicine. And the canopy size would also help prevent the legislative concerns about us growing 4 megatrees of the cannabis. It would limit it in, but allow us to do the search that we need.
Senator, I know you have a tight schedule here, and Andrea, look, that is wonderful information. I know the senator's taking that in, and I'm sure his policy person's listening on as well. But that's spot on. But Senator, you know, before you go, any final thoughts on you know where we should be focusing on? I don't know how to reach out to senators, but like, what else would you like to see us doing to help you be successful in getting this legislation passed?
I think doing that, you know, sometimes look, it's not unique to the folks that care about a home grow provision. I deal with a lot of different stakeholders who care about different areas, and sometimes we get a little too into the weeds on certain things, not, you know, figuratively or literally there, but we need to I think educate our legislators in the most basic of areas. Like, you know, even for me, I have not smoked cannabis since I was in college. So I was not even fully educated on what home grow was until this constituent in Eatontown reached out to me. And I think, you know, keep in mind, New Jersey legislature is it's a part-time legislature. Everybody has another full-time job. And whether it's this or housing or healthcare or public education, there are experts in these fields, and I think that's important. I think some of the folks concerned in leadership, hearing from organizations like yours, Scott, and really hearing, because they're very concerned, I guess, about the for-profit market, if my understanding, and they're very concerned about overall impacts to municipalities, maybe not getting the tax revenue if the market changes. I think you and other folks who are dispensary owners or who are parts of these trade organizations, sitting down with legislative leadership, sitting down with legislators and educating them that this is not only okay and won't impact the market as it has in other states, that that it's only going to help the cause overall. I think addressing, I've heard some of the concerns from although I haven't heard from law enforcement groups directly, I've heard from legislative leadership that they're concerned about how law enforcement is going to navigate some of this. I think we all know, just looking at other states, why that's not the case. I think all of this would be helpful in the education process, and then of course just getting it into the priority. I mean, I talked to and either in the beginning or when we were backstage to Andrea, that it was important to Senator Vitale that you knew that he was pushing, because you're his constituent and people are going to listen to their constituents. And I go back to what I started with. You got to, if you care about this issue and you can't tell the name of your state senator, your two assembly people, you don't know their names, and you're not on at least a cell phone or email or some kind of relationship with them talking about this issue, that is the most important thing you could do right now. Not writing the letters to the editor, not the op-eds, not putting up a tweet or a Facebook post. Figure out how to build a relationship with your local legislators.
That's spot on, man. Thank you. Thank you very much. And for, I know you have to go, Senator, and I'd like to continue the conversation a little bit, as long as you can stay. Because I think it is important. What you just laid out here is something important. There are programs out there, and Ken, I'm speaking to you directly, because I know you're out here. But there
Scott,
are
I apologize. I'm going to jump off. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Senator. Keep up the good work, bud. But there are programs out there that we utilize from time to time. I know when we were doing the main campaign in 2020 for legalization, we put together some programs where we would pre-populate a letter that would go to your senator and assembly members. All you had to do was really pick which version of the letter you wanted, so it was more personalized. And then you put your data in there, and then out pop three letters that would go to your legislators. And I think we hit like 20,000, emails that went out during the course of the campaign. And I thought it was pretty effective. Kristen, I mean, you're a grassroots lady. I mean, you've been hustling this for a long time. What do you think? What would you like to see happen?
Yeah, so there is a website, njhomegrow.com. It does have emails similar to what you're saying, where it will just open an email addressed to all of the legislators. There's a Senate one, there's an Assembly one, and then there's also two emails to email the Senate Health Committee, which is the committee that is assigned that bill on the Senate side, and then also the Assembly Oversight Committee requesting hearings. So even just to have this up for discussion within those committees would go a long way in addressing the concerns from patients on that level. And, I have been I've had a lot of conversations over the past 6 or 7 months with the state on both the Senate and the Assembly side. And it is really just making sure that your representatives understand, but that you as a constituent want and need medical home cultivation, but also from the industry perspective, just dismissing the myths that this will ever affect any businesses. As far as medical home cultivation goes, out of those who are even registered within the program, I think it would be well under 10% that attempt to grow. And then out of those, maybe under 10% that would be successful in growing. And even if they do grow and maintain their medicine, they would still We see this in other markets. A lot of home growers, whether for personal use or for medical, still participate in the legal market. They want variety. It's just like brewing your own beer. Like, yeah, so you have that one type of beer, but you're still going to go out to the brewery and experiment with other types because it is more of a hobby if it's personal use, home grow, or brewing at home, something like that.
Right on. And when we were doing our analysis, so again, on the advocacy side for the general legalization back in the day, I mean, we were looking at Colorado and just pulling their numbers together. So there are 5.8 million people. We're 9 million people. They have 70 million visitors. We have 110 million visitors. So like we're doing all the economics of things, and they did $1.8 billion in sales, right? So you look at New Jersey, we're going to do better than that, in sales, generally speaking. So when I'm talking from a business perspective, I look at it this way. Colorado is just, everybody's got home grow available. You have co-ops available. There's lack of enforcement all over the place, and they still made $1.8 billion in legal sales. So it is not going to impact the New Jersey market, is my point. We're just going to do so much better if that's the concern of anybody has. So the next concern is proliferation. And I just don't see it. It is a costly thing to do. So if it is a hobby, it is an expensive thing to do. So, but if patient needs to grow their own medicine, and part of this too is it's somewhat disruptive that you can grow your own medicine, Andrea, right? I mean, it's disruptive to the pharmaceutical industry. If you're sitting around making your own medicine and you don't have to go out and take all those medicines that damaged your brain, you need to be able to do this. It's a simple, compassionate thing.
It is, and it's not just about the pharmaceutical industries that could be losing out on people like me, because I'm not going back to pharmaceuticals at this point. I've been off of them for over 6 years, and I found a quality of life that I was told wouldn't be possible. And I have nothing but optimism as the science develops and as resources develop. But they've been stringing patients along in this state most of my life, actually. We've been talking about medical home grow since 2005. Senate President Nicholas Guattari was the first one to actually propose it. And now he seems to be the leadership that's not allowing informational hearings or votes on this. And there is that breakdown of communication as to where things went wrong. Every time we pass a new version of cannabis or adapt the medical program, we're told we can revisit patient rights later. And when is it late enough? How long can we ask hospice patients to be patient or prioritize the industry when even the industry isn't threatened? It's prohibition that leads to proliferation. Prohibition is the reason that people have no options besides a black market existing.
That's amazing.
If you allowed people to have ways for independence, they would take the easier options of going to the dispensaries for the extra. They would grow their own medicine. These people wouldn't be able to operate the same, but it's been a lot of propaganda and prohibition that has really.
That's probably the best line I've heard in a very long time. That prohibition leads to proliferation. And that's wow. Because you're absolutely right. I mean, we saw that every time we have prohibition. So alcohol, cannabis, or otherwise. That's what leads to the black market. You're absolutely correct. And let's bring everything under one tent. Let's allow patients to grow. Let me sell the weed that I'm selling. Like to Kristen's point, I mean, I got a variety of stuff here, edibles, this, that, and the other thing, great flower, all this good stuff. Your world would never impact my world when it comes to, you having access to medicine. And one of the things that I think some operators like myself, we offer 10% off for patients, so we're an adult use only. But if you're a patient, I don't even need to see your medical card. You're going to trust that you have condition, and you're going to get 10% off because you shouldn't be paying taxes for your medicine. So, I mean, there's the little things that the dispensaries can do right now. There's other initiatives out there to pull things together under an insurance mechanism too, to help defray the cost. So for those who do not want to, or otherwise unable to grow their own medicine, then at least let's allow there to be a copay involved. So there are those efforts too. But again, I think that the best thing in this whole conversation was what you just said, and I really want to support that. So on behalf of the NJCBA, I will definitely tell you guys that we're on board with this. We have been on board. I mean, I remember Lefty interviewing me a number of years ago, pre-COVID, and asked me that question, and I was sort of startled because I hadn't really thought about home grow when I've been focusing so much on, you know, let's grow a responsible, sustainable, and inclusive industry. Let's make sure we're doing social justice. We spent so much time on making this a legal market for people to go and participate in. I hadn't really thought too much about the patient component in a long time. And then Lefty asked me the question. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it just, there's no financial reason. There's no, you know, why would we make somebody a criminal because they need to have access, Andrea, like you, or the dad who I mentioned earlier, single dad, X-ray technician, he can't afford to do this. So, there's any last words from your part, Kristen?
No, I mean, I think you're right on point there. The industry, you know, we have been really laser focused on getting this started. I know, you know, obviously I was one of the first actually licensed in the adult use. I think we have the first license, and I've been just building and focusing on that. And it kind of, you know, it woke me up, just like understanding the patient struggle in the current market. And it made me want to devote any time that I had to helping this cause and to help it get pushed through. And I hope especially now as the industry is established, more business owners will help lend their voice and support to get this pushed through in New Jersey, because at the end of the day, the state listens to industry. They will listen to the industry over advocates, and I've seen that firsthand. I think that it's really important for us to come together on this issue and to make sure that patients are able to grow their own medicine.
Amen. Andrea?
I think cannabis made it through the initial prohibition because people were brave enough to put morality over legality at points. And it was the patients and the caretakers that protected this plant and paved the way for there to be an industry. And we've asked them to be patient a long time. It'd be nice if we could actually allow them the medicine they need. And my story may seem dramatic, but it's nothing compared to the majority of people who don't have the opportunity to tell theirs. If you're already in a hospital bed, you can't really show up in Trenton and testify. Or if you're worried about the safety of your child, it can be difficult to come forward. But we need people to come forward, especially people in the industry, especially people who have nothing to do with cannabis, who might have never smoked at all, because you never know how important it is until it affects someone you care about.
Right.
And you don't want to be in this position where it's too late and the systems aren't in place. Let's get the safety nets in place. Let's help the people we can help, because it's not going to hurt the industry. It's not going to hurt anybody.
Not at all. And you know, and we were talking, for those who are listening, we were talking a little earlier about sort of, you know, Andrea and Kristen at this point, you know, sort of leading efforts and leading conversations, and how we really did this on the shoulders, I should say, of people like Jim Miller. You know, talk about, you know, somebody in a hospital bed. Well, he took the bed to the legislatures, right? And, you know, those powerful stories allowed us, to your point, get to the point where people are getting comfortable with legalization. Okay, all right, let's do this. Okay, there's medical, there's social justice. Let's do this. We can create jobs. Let's do this. And then I think that this is, I don't know if this is the last big effort that needs to happen. There's probably more that we're going to be fighting for, but this has to happen. And I think we can probably do something to the veterans that are out there watching this, to the newcomers who have been, you know, very dramatically sharing their stories, and great sound bites, Andrea. I mean that sincerely. Those little takeaways will really matter to people. So I saw a bunch of links that were shared in the chat. You know, and shame on me for not really paying attention to that. I've really been just focusing on just trying to get my own business started and do other things. This is a passion project for me. It really has been something, a long journey for a lot of us, and just the opportunity to make a difference in people's lives. I mean, that's why, you know, we do what we do, and why we're here right now. So so ladies, thank you very much. Senator Gopal and his team, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for those who were for paying attention and participating here. just, you know, we got a fight to do, Ken and Lefty and Jim, and we're going to continue this fight, and let's get it done. Let's just get it done. I think we can do it. So we're going to get smart. So I just want to say thank you again, and take care. Jenna?
Thank you.
Thanks for
Hey, guys.